Harriet, You'll Drive Me Wild. The author is Mem Fox. The illustrator is Marla Fraziz. Harriet, You'll Drive Me Wild. Look at Mom. Harriet Harris was a pesky child. She didn't mean to be, she just was. Look at her blowing the horn into the dog's ear. One morning at breakfast, she knocked over a glass of juice, just like that. Look at her feet in the air, her head's near the floor, the dog's licking her face. Her mother didn't like to yell, so instead she said, "Harriet, my darling child." "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. At snack time, she dripped jam all over her jeans, just like that. With Cheerios on the floor, looks like Mom's trying to make some type of business call. Her mother didn't like to yell, so instead she said, "Harriet, my darling child, Harriet, you'll drive me wild." "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. Before lunch, when Harriet was painting a picture, she dripped paint on the carpet, just like that. Her mother didn't like to yell, so instead she said, "Harriet, my darling child, Harriet, you'll drive me wild. Harriet, sweetheart, what are we to do?" "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. At lunch, Harriet slid off her chair, and the tablecloth came with her, just like that. Look at the food going everywhere. Mom trying to catch her. Her mother didn't like to yell, so instead she said, "Harriet, my darling child, Harriet, you'll drive me wild. Harriet, sweetheart, what are we to do?" "Harriet Harris, I'm talking to you." "I'm sorry," said Harriet, and she was. Later that afternoon, when Harriet was meant to be napping, she ripped open a pillow just like that. So she was supposed to be taking her afternoon nap. Her and the dog are playing tug of war, and the feathers go everywhere. 1,000 feathers flew in every direction. There was a terrible silence. Mom's right doing checks, paying the bills. Then Harriet's mother began to yell. She yelled and yelled and yelled. "I'm sorry," Harriet cried. "I'm really, really sorry." Her mother took a deep breath. "I know you are," she said, hugging Harriet tight. "I'm sorry, too. I shouldn't have yelled, but I wish I hadn't. But sometimes it happens just like that." "Big mess," said Harriet. "A very big mess," said her mother, and she started to laugh. Look at the dog. And they laughed and laughed and went on laughing as they picked up the feathers together. They worked as a team. "Harriet, you'll drive me wild."